Hello folks, how's it going? Hopefully your day is going well. Mine is. Well, I'm getting some work done anyway. I'm getting some marking done and things are generally going in the right direction in terms of workload. Let's jump into our hobby nightmares, shall we? We should have some new footage on the video, which is nice, which has some grey lights in it, which we all might like a lot. So we've got that going on. And also, if you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below, all that fun stuff. The Patreon's down below too. If you want to buy me a pint or something towards the weekend, that'd be lovely of you. And if you want to be involved in our prize draw, which is every weekend, for some tea and another Space Marine repulsor tank, because for some reason I found another one. We've got 3 in the house now. I didn't even know where these came from. I think they may have been like from a while ago when I've gotten them through orders and things, and I just haven't made them. So I'm not going to make them. May as well give them away to you. So if you want to get a repulsor tank, all you need to do is be involved on the Patreon or a member of the channel, and you could win our second repulsor tank this weekend when we do our prize draw live stream. So, Peter is first up today, and he says, "Hey North, please call me Peter." I have done. "I just finished listening to your Should You Ever Pirate Games Workshop's Product a 40k rant video and think your opinion is thought out and balanced, and I believe there's a piece of the puzzle missing. So I wanted to write into Hobby Nightmares to maybe shine some light on it. It's to do with my own nightmare." Okay, that's cool. But first, some background. I'm from Australia, but I'd like to keep it vague because in certain circles I'm quite well known. Back in 2016, when I got my master's degree, it was difficult to get a job in the city, so my fiancée, now wife, said I should consider moving to the country. I found the job in a country city, quote unquote, and moved to work there in 2017. We had a small, struggling local game store, and I helped them out by organising and running magic events. There were a few groups in the store: Pokemon TCG, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dungeons and Dragons, and Warhammer. Geographically, this is North talking now, I've always found Australia to be a bit of a puzzler, because it's not built in land. Everything's on the coast, right? Everything's on the coast. There's a really good comedian by the name of Steve Hughes. He's from Australia, and he says a really good joke where he says, we love the land in Australia. We love the land. We love it. We love the land. That's why we all live on the coast, looking at the sea." Like, it's just... Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a strange country. Australians, I don't know much about your culture or, like, your geographical tendencies, so why have you not built inland? Just let me know. Is it because it was a colony back in the day and it's easier to put a colony on the coast? For somebody who likes coastal cities, I think I like almost every Australian city by the looks of it, you know what I mean? Anyway, moving on. There was a bit of a crossover between these groups, and it was a great place. I used to tease the Warhammer players about needing a textbook to play their game that took longer than the entire Magic the Gathering tournaments that I ran. It was all good-natured stuff, though. Unfortunately, the store closed down. Another store sprung up, and most of the same people moved in there. Again, it closed down, and now we are on to yet another store. I continue to run my Magic events, but each time a store closed, the community shrank a little bit more. By now, we are in 2023, and I'm still running Magic, but due to the store changes and decisions made by Hasbro/Wizards of the Coast, the scene has been dying off steadily. Warhammer 10th Edition has just been released, and many people I was friendly with had come back and were playing it in the store. A good friend of mine, sorry, I need to have a coffee here, sorry. Sorry about that. It just came on me all of a sudden. A good friend of mine I play Magic with had been telling me for years to get into Warhammer, and whilst hanging around the store one day for the next round, after another friend walked in and started setting up his Imperial Knights. I have always been a big fan of big mechs, and seeing them tower over a bunch of puny Space Marines and wipe out squads at a time awakened something in me. There was a tournament coming up in a few months. I decided to dive into Warhammer and play Imperial Knights. Purchasing the basics of the army was easy. I quickly had 3 Questoris Knights, 2 Dominus Knights, and 6 Armigers. I tried to pay someone to get them assembled, magnetised, and painted in time for the tournament, but that ended up not happening in time. My friend, who first showed me his Imperial Knights, let me use his painted army for the tournament so that I wouldn't lose the 10 points. I managed to get in a few practice games in the weeks leading up to the tournament, and went 2-1, only losing to the Tyranid player who won the tournament. For those waiting for the nightmare, here we go. After the tournament, I set about collecting a complete army of Imperial Knights. I then learned about Forge World and allying in Imperial agents. I ordered through the store the common agents needed to fill out Imperial Knights armies, inquisitorial henchmen, assassins, and the like. Here was the first snag. The Calidus assassin had been impossible to get. The owner of the store still hasn't been able to order it in time to this day. Then there's the Forge World models. I waited months to be able to order some in some resin-only knights, but other things I am after are just still not available. In Magic the Gathering, I've never had any problem getting a card that I want, but Games Workshop have proven time and time again that they aren't interested in keeping stock of certain models. I started collecting Custodes and Astra Militarum at the beginning of the year, and I am still waiting for some Forge World stuff I'm interested in to be in stock. I'm struggling to figure out some YouTube-friendly language for this that adequately expresses my feelings, so let's just say I find it incredibly stupid that on one hand Games Workshop says to play in our tournaments you need the official models and we reserve the right to kick/ban you and so on, but on the other hand they don't keep the models in stock so you can't actually get them. I will continue to support my local game store with what they are able to get in, but I am sick of these stock problems. I was ready to buy absolutely ridiculously priced Forge World models, but my patience has run out. I am going to buy a high-end 3D printer, print the Forge World models that Games Workshop can't be bothered selling me, and use them to battle my friends. This will not hurt my local game store, as they don't sell Forge World, as it's direct to customer, and thus I don't feel bad for pirating, quote-unquote. I hope you see my point, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Regards, Peter. Okay. I think you're doing the right thing. Mainly because, and I know people are going to jump down my throat here and say, what? You can't say that. Well, no, I can actually, because pirating is okay if, and I stress this now, if Games Workshop are no longer providing you a service with which you can get those models. Peter, you brought up the whole thing perfectly there. You really did, right? I want to play in these tournaments. I can't do it without official models. So fine. If you're not going to provide any sort of, shall we say, service to me, then I'll go and find it elsewhere and I'll source it myself. That is a fine thing to do. And that is why we have open source video games. These are video games that aren't made anymore, or video games that publishers can't be bothered publishing and putting on a database somewhere so we can pay them to get those games, right? They become open source, they become open season, and you can just go and get them whenever you want. That's how it should work. If you're not providing me a service anymore, then I'll get it myself. I'll do it myself. That's fine. I am of the strong opinion as well, through their pricing structure, especially Australian and New Zealand customers, but due to their pricing structure, I would say that Games Workshop's latest price rise basically means that they are no longer providing a service to their entire model range. That's controversial, I know. But any model that Games Workshop make, I honestly think they're not providing that service because they're too expensive. Okay? They're expensive enough that it's becoming obscene. It's becoming... how do I put this? Well, obscene's the word. Yeah, obscene. It's not normal, right? These are really inflated prices to the point that the market doesn't exist, in my mind. It just can't. It's not sustainable. So at this point, you go do what you want. If you want to 3D print your Space Marines, go 3D print your Space Marines. All right? Don't kick Games Workshop off the hobby. Just go, nah, I'm not doing that, right? If you can't afford it, print it yourself. Or go to another website and print it. Get it done yourself. Because Games Workshop, to me, are no longer providing that service. They're no longer giving you a service. Okay? Let me have a quick look here how much a Primoris Intercessor Squad actually is. Let's have a look, shall we? So on different websites, you can get them for 32 quid. That's still very, very, very expensive for what it is, right? Very expensive. But let's look into, on the Games Workshop site and in Games Workshop stores, they are £40. £40 for 10 Space Marines. £40. That's $52 for 10 Marines. That's daylight robbery. That is daylight robbery. Okay? As I say right there, they're not providing a service anymore. So if you want to go and 3D print your models, have at it, right? I would still, if you can help it, try and support your local store like you are, Peter. That's good. You know, every now and again, if you got some money lying around and you want some Space Marines, you'll go in and buy them from your local store because they sell it for like 30 quid, 32 quid, you know, and you can afford that. That's fine. £40 for 10 models, $52 Australian or American for 10 models is a kick in the nuts. And you shouldn't have to pay that kind of money. I know hobbies are expensive. We've been through this before. Okay, I get that. But there's expensive and there's robbery. This is robbery. So they're not providing a service anymore. If you can only buy the models from Games Workshop, because that's the only store you've got around you, don't. Print your models instead. That's my advice. Alright? Invest that money in a really good 3D printer and learning how to do the process, right? You nerd out over it, but it is a thing. You can do it. And then all of a sudden, you have the means to print yourself a full army of whatever you want. Okay? For a fraction of the cost. And it is what it is. Yes, you can't play in tournaments. Who cares? Okay? Maybe 3D print your... Here's the thing. 3D print your first army. Why not? You know, 3D print your first army. So you know Warhammer's for you. And then when you start getting into it, going, wow, this is really my jam. I really like this. I would like to play in tournaments. That's when you start setting money aside for your odd box of Space Marines, your odd tank hero there, your odd character, and you build up your army to the point that you actually have a tournament level list that you go and play in a tournament or do whatever you want to do. That I would advise you, if you're getting into 40k, start out with a single box. A single box, an official single box of whatever you want, right? Then 3D print the rest. 3D print the rest of your army. Or get it second-hand, whatever you need to do. That's your first army, right? Then, when you're sure it's for you and you like what you're doing, that's when you move on to buying official products from official retailers. Never, ever buy from Games Workshop themselves. Never, ever do it. Okay? Their premiums are a joke. And their pricing structure is a joke. You know, and that's before I even get into the retailers. The retailers are had over a barrel by Games Workshop. They really are. It's disgusting. But anyway, moving on before I rant some more. Sam says, my name is Sam. It's fine to use my real name and some of my friends' names. Okay. I am a 34-year-old father of 3 who has just broken a long hiatus from my much-loved 40k hobby, Chaos Space Marines. A visit to my childhood home, viewing on my old Land Raider tank, has spurred me back into the world of 40k. Seeing this model made me reflect on good times with friends during my high school years, and has also touched on some very sad times too, but we'll get into that later. Once I returned back home, I began watching painting tutorial videos from many different talented hobby painters. It made me want to go back and give my 3rd edition Chaos Army the paint job I wanted to give them, but lacked the knowledge and patience to do so at the time. The past year has been spent assembling, painting and converting old and new models. I have attached some photos for you and hope you enjoy and critique them duly. I will on Sunday. I will. I never realised how therapeutic and cathartic putting paint on a toy soldier could be. So take a sip of a strong brew and let me give you my hobby nightmare. It was 2003, before AI programs, before YouTube, before social media, and most Australian households were limited to dial-up internet, if any. Dude, Australians today, they're everywhere. We spent plenty of time outside, and I filled my life at the time with lots of extracurricular activities. Athletics, tennis, camping with my family, playing and quarrelling with my brothers. My parents were a working middle class, although they managed to send 4 children to a private school and give us plenty of nice experiences with holidays. Life couldn't have been better, really. Okay, take a sip of tea. My friendship group had been introduced to Warhammer 40k by our mate Hagrid in February of 2003. A fitting nickname given his frame and friendly demeanour. Slapping a white dwarf onto the school desk in front of me, I was greeted with a plethora of intricately painted models and snippets of lore. Seeing Hagrid's Tau army at his house sealed the deal for me. I was going to start an army of my own. A second mate was all into Space Marines and Grey Knight, man of culture, amassing a sizable army very quickly. As a third mate who opted for Necrons, I eventually decided to pick Chaos, as the aesthetic of the metallic trim and spiky bits looked great on the tabletop, in addition to the awesome artwork in the 3rd edition Codex. Okay, that's cool. The Space Marine player, let's call him James, took to learning the basics of the rules quickly, as did the Necron player, John, who had 3,000 points painted and ready to rock and roll before I could blink. 2 other close friends were, Bill and Ben, also intrigued by Warhammer Fantasy Battles, however they never got around to starting an army. I suspect because Bill's parents, who were staunch Christians, the hobby appeared to be outside the Christian ideals. Dragons, demons and assorted beasts. And no doubt the price tag associated with such heresy would have factored in as well. Ben, on the other hand, was a gentle yet mischievous soul who loved to take the piss out of things when we all took them way too seriously. He had his own group who were into fantasy battles and never quite clicked with the 40k cult we now all seem to be involved in. Starting my own army of chaos took some convincing from my parents, who wanted to see me get into something, get something from all these plastic and pewter models. I eventually won them over, and on the basis of enjoying art in school, and I wanted to have an outlet for that. Yeah, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. If you want your parents to get you something, factor it into a skill you're trying to learn in school. Works all the time. As my birthday came around, I was gifted a starter box of Chaos Space Marines, the one with the Rhino, Bikers, Khorne Berserkers and regular Chaos Space Marines. I proceeded to spend the rest of my pocket money on some glue, paints, and I used my art brush from school to get started immediately. I couldn't have been happier, as I assembled all my models at once on a weekend and primed them in my backyard, away from the garden, as instructed. A couple of weeks after, we all had our armies and were chomping at the bit to have a game of our own. James's place was central to us, and our go-to place for hangouts. Hagrid explained the rules quite well, and we put our models on James's parents' tool table. Bill and Ben came too as observers, and seemed interested in the whole ordeal. In my very basic 1,000 point match, my Chaos army quickly got the drop on James's Space Marines at the time. We all had fun, and decided to team Chaos/Space Marines versus Tau. However, this time, Hagrid showed no mercy, as my Berserkers and troops were picked off before they could damage a single model, while James's Dreadnought received a railgun round through the sarcophagus in a similar display of dominance. Ben had a cackle and promptly stated that we both need some heavy weapons to have a chance against these guys, and he wasn't wrong. And a game at Hagrid's the following week confirmed this. I only managed to kill a few drones, as he made mincemeat of everything else before I could get anywhere near them. The weekend had been a blast though. I had a good experience with my first game and learned a lot. However, the following week at school, commotion began to stir. Okay. John had started to change his attitude towards us, specifically myself, as we grew our armies. And it was to come out that he didn't take kindly to me collecting Warhammer at all to begin with. I didn't care too much, as I was enjoying myself at the time, until one day between lessons I overheard a conversation between him and James. "I can't believe that guy could even afford Warhammer," he scoffed flippantly. "His family are quite poor." I felt a pang of betrayal and then just anger. He knew that my family was going through a rough patch and finances, and not only did I feel attacked, but I felt my family was attacked also. As I stewed in my lessons that day at school, I waited until after recess where I could get John alone and confront him. Initially, I just wanted to give him an earful and be on my way, but when I greeted him, he returned a wordless smirk that reeked of superiority. It rubbed me wrong, and I lost it there, and then began hitting him hard in the stomach. He folded like an origami paper, and I left the scene promptly. As to be expected, I was swiftly grounded. A phone call from John's mother to mine had escalated and gotten me grounded from seeing my friends on the weekend. I quietly accepted the punishment and didn't bother explaining my side of the story to my parents as A. They could see Warhammer as the root cause of the altercation and bar me from the hobby, and B. Beating somebody because they made a hurtful comment towards me was indefensible and I knew better. Okay. Many years later, I eventually did tell my parents what he said and why I kept quiet. They both agreed a good shot in the guts was in order. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like, if that's my son, I'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, all right. You know, I see why you did that. I see why you did that. You know, you still shouldn't have done it, but, you know, what are you going to do? I'd started a part-time job at a dairy farm. I now had some money to fund this growing warband of mine. I took Mum to my local hobby store as she was interested in what her son was getting into, and watched in silence as out of all of the colourful boxes containing various miniatures, I selected a Demon Prince. This was quite possibly the coolest thing I had seen at the time. The box art of the Juan Diaz sculpt just radiated wickedness, evil and menace, the perfect addition to my army. Mum deemed it ugly and didn't quite see what all the fuss was about. However, I think she was glad I was just having fun with the hobby and it was a creative thing for me to be into. To me, this stands to this day as one of the coolest models I've ever painted. Ben would visit later that day, and even he had to concede it was a great model. We spent the day writing theoretical army lists and brainstorming tactics. A few months later, Christmas was here, and I remember unwrapping my second to last gift under the tree, and to my delight, I saw the box art for a Chaos Land Raider and a Defiler. The perfect opportunity to use these bad boys came in a doubles tournament with our local gaming club the following year. Hagrid and myself entered an unorthodox alliance of Tau and Chaos. The day itself was peak 40k for myself. Metal music, rolling dice and wargaming with a great bunch of dudes. Our Tau duo of Tau and Chaos was surprisingly effective. We ended up 4th out of 10. Alright, that's cool. And in all, it was a great experience. As our final year of schooling approached its end, Hagrid, James, John, Bill, Ben and myself shifted our focus from Warhammer to finishing our exams and preparing for university study. Although I still made some time to hobby, painting and hanging mostly with Hagrid and Ben in particular warming to the 40k culture a bit more. I'll pause here and take a moment because this part is difficult to read out. Okay. Alright. It was a Thursday afternoon, 15th of November 2007, in the first week of our Year 12 exams. I had finished my final exam, so you're what? You're 17, right? Around about then. I had finished my final exam earlier that day, and Hagrid and myself were going for a casual jog. After our session, we headed to Ben's, who should have been studying for a history exam, but being gifted with memory retention and natural aptitude, he had opted to play World of Warcraft on his advanced birthday present, a custom-built gaming computer. Dude, what a lucky guy. We let ourselves in, and made ourselves comfortable, and started chatting away. Not about Warhammer this time, just about life. What exotic pets we would own in university, what university would be like, hopes and dreams, you know what I mean. I can still see the room we were sitting in, the whirring of the computer, the noises, the scents. When I left that night, I felt like a part of my childhood was swiftly coming to a close. I just didn't know at the time how swiftly. Dude, we've all had... Yeah, man. We've all had, like, moments like that sooner rather than later. It was like the end of an era when you can crystallize the point where you think it started to shift. You know what I mean? When the innocent started to die. That point, you know? For me, it was like the summer of 2015. Round about then. I always remember that summer as like a really good time in my life. And my daughter was born, or just born. I was in a good relationship at the time. Didn't last, obviously, but I was in a good relationship at the time. I was in university doing well, and it was summer. Sun was shining. There were, like, cherry blossoms everywhere in the front garden. I was watching YouTube, writing, having a really good summer, and I just loved it. It was just one of those times when I had relatively little compared to what I have now, right? Right now, I've got a really good life, and, you know, I want you guys to share in that, which is why I do the channel, right? I've got a good missus, I've got a nice place to live, I've got really good prospects going forwards, and I write a lot. I generally, I could not complain about my life at all, right? I may get into a mood every now and again, but my life's great, dude, and I'm truly, truly, truly thankful to have it. But I was still at my happiest, I reckon. Now, yes. I think now I'd look back at now in 10 years' time and go, wow, was I really happy back then? But that 2015 summer was really a happy time. And I had relatively little, you know? I had a really old PC that didn't work very well. You know, I had a laptop that didn't really work very well. And I had nothing else, you know? Not really. But still, to me, it was a really good time. Like, it was a good time. Have any of you ever had moments like that? Where there's a single moment that's crystallized for you that is there and you love it and you know. I don't know. Let me carry on. When I left that night, I felt a part of my childhood was swiftly coming to a close. I just didn't know at the time how swiftly. Friday morning arrives, and there is a talk of a party out of town. Most of my friends had an open invitation. I declined on account of a tennis match early on Saturday morning, and James wasn't really interested. Hagrid was scheduled to work, and Ben was doing his own thing. After school, I spent a rare quiet night in, taking some time out to put some extra details on my Land Raider that Ben and I had thought of, and play some F-Zero GX, my favourite game. Okay, cool. It's awesome that you actually know all of your notes here. Saturday, 17th of November, 2007. I wake up later and drive to my tennis match. I have a wrong turn and stop to double back. I overhear on the radio station something about a car accident in the early hours of the morning. I knew then the journey of boyhood had come to a close. I didn't need to hear it, nor did I want to hear it, nor was I ready for it. I did, though. I now had no choice. I had a missed call from James to come back to my house, to forget the tennis match. I turned off the radio and drove home eerily calm, because I knew what I was about to hear. Okay. James and Hagrid and Ben's cousin greeted me at my own house. My mum crying in her bedroom, James and the gang followed me to my bedroom and broke the news to me that I already knew. Ben has been involved in a car accident early this morning, and he passed away. As it turns out, it was a triple fatal accident, and one poor soul clinging to life had been flown to hospital. They were returning from the aforementioned house party in the early hours of the morning. Important to note, there was no alcohol involved in the incident, none. Both parties were sober drivers. A T-intersection in a poorly lit area with a hill masking oncoming traffic was the setting, and inexperience was the killer. The universe had randomized this, and we all had to concede. But Bill was inconsolable when we met with him to break the news, and James and Hagrid weren't in great shape either. I felt like I'd been submerged into a tank of cement. I could see, hear, and experience what was going on, but everything was numb and slowed down, and I was insensitive to the world around me. Dude, I've been there. I have been there. Absolutely, man. I've been there. Like, yeah, you don't know what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? You're sort of there, and Like, when my grandma died, I kind of went into autopilot and started making sure everybody around me was okay. Do you know what I mean? But I was on autopilot, and I didn't really process that grief for a while. You know? Ben's birthday party never went ahead. He never got a welcoming to adulthood. I still have his paper birthday invitation. For the next few weeks, I didn't touch Warhammer, work out, play sport, or even any music in my room. My favourite metal bands, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, usually played through my speakers whilst gaming or studying, but they remained silent, my CDs and models gathering dust. All my friends, including myself, moved up to the city to begin university courses, and while I slowly headed over time and took on new challenges, made new friends, built my passion for sports again, and took up powerlifting and found the love of my life, I never touched my models again, especially the Land Raider. I just couldn't do it. I could only picture Ben and myself putting it together. I am still in touch with Hagrid, and we talk frequently, sharing our love for everything 40k. James less so, but still touch basing frequently. Time had passed, and life looks different to all of us now. I work away from my family in the construction and mining industry, doing fly-in, fly-out work. 2 weeks straight work on site, 12-hour days, with a week home with family. The physical strain is a lot, and a lot of the time secondary to the mental toll it takes on you. I can imagine, man, yeah. I have my powerlifting to keep my body strong, and I train hard. This has been a drain for all my anger, hatred, and insecurity. But for my mental health, I've decided that I need to return to painting 40k. As of now, I have no plans to return to playing the game, as I simply do not have the time. When I went back to my childhood home, I had my little daughter and my young son with me. We were looking at my old books and photos. My wife was out with my mum getting lunch, and Dad was working downstairs. And on one of the shelves, I had the Land Raider tank there, gathering dust. I picked it up for the first time in years, and felt it again. My boy asked me, "What's that?" I didn't answer him straight away, as I had all of the memories coming back to me. I replied to him, "It's special, mate." And he looked at me and said, in his 2.5-year-old voice, "Special?" It was one of the rare occasions I have cried in my adult life. My Land Raider is now back at my house amongst my family. This is the next big project I want. I want to strip the old paint off it and begin it anew. It's going to look absolutely deadly in the custom colours of my chapter. My wife is very understanding of my passion, and her love and support knows no bounds. Many hours late into the night I have spent, recently dedicated to painting, in between waking and tending to our newest family member. Now, as I sit awake at 11 PM, reflecting on the past year, I realise I needed this hobby back in my life, but I also need to celebrate and cherish the things I have in life today. If you made it this far reading, thank you. I tried not to give you my life story, but there was a bit I needed to vent. I have not spoken about this to anybody in years, and it feels like I've just racked a load... What? I don't know what that means. It feels like I've just racked a loaded squat bar after a 1 rep max. Right. So you're doing weights and stuff. Right, okay. I think I was just waiting for the right person on this platform to air this on. You've done more for men's mental health than a lot of doctors and medical practitioners. I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. Thank you, though. Thank you. Okay. In saying that, I do encourage anyone struggling to seek professional help too. P.S. I'm sorry for your granddad, and I have been down this path with my own family members. Make him comfortable and enjoy the good days when he has them. Cherish what you have now. Live for the future. Love you a long time. Cheers. Well, that's brilliant, man. And yeah, he's doing a lot better. I'm going to go see him later on today. So once I see him, I'll be able to give you all an update. But his pneumonia's getting better. He's getting better. So things are on the mend. It looks like he is going to be in a home when he comes out, which isn't going to be great. But you know, it's where we are at the time. It is where we are now, and that's where we need to be, and that's fine. You know. Anyway, I love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for, what's Wednesday today, so tomorrow will be Hobby Rantage time. It'll be 40k rant, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do it on. Leave it with me. I've got several things I want to cover, but I'm not sure what I want to cover just yet. I may give you a vote. We'll see. Love you all. Speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.